Brisbane property has grown by 55% the last 4 years. And some big economists and major heads of real estate firms are predicting that Australia might rise another 50% before 2032. So in today's video, I want to talk about Brisbane's prospects, what's happening here in the Brisbane market, and give you my insider knowledge as I run a Brisbane buyers agency here at Purpose Property, giving you the on-the-ground look and feel of what's going on in the Brisbane market at the moment. Now, my name's Luke, and I talk all things real estate, renovating, and financial freedom here on the channel. If you're new, please subscribe. That would really help me out. And we're going to be talking about Brisbane. Now, the hottest markets over the last 12 to 24 months have been Brisbane, Perth, and Adelaide. Looking at the data, Perth has slightly outperformed the growth of Brisbane and Adelaide, sitting around 22% the last 12 months, with Brisbane and Adelaide sitting around that 15% mark, depending on which data house you look at. Now, on screen, I have the total property listings here in Brisbane based on SQM Research's data. SQM is one of the great data houses out there that provide this very useful information. You can see here we've got total property listings under 30 days, 30 to 60, 60 to 90, 90 to 180, and over 180 days. If you've got lots of old listings, that means stock is not moving and there's lots of property sitting on the market. And if you've got a high number of properties sold within that under 30-day mark, an increase in this area means properties are moving quickly. As you can see on screen, we've got this big dip here from 2020 down to 2022, and now it's actually on the decline if you look at the chart across here between 2023 to 2024 in terms of total property listed here in the Brisbane market. When we look at property, we always want to come back to the fundamentals. We want to look at supply and we want to look at demand. Now, total property listings mapped over the last 14 years from 2010 to 2024 provided by SQM gives you that data on supply. It shows that there are a lot more properties available 2010 through 2021. And that's what you can see here on screen, is that levels have stayed fairly steady over the previous decade. But as we move into the 2020s, you can see there's a big drop off of supply here in Brisbane, and that's because we are an established market. Most of Brisbane City, or the Brisbane LGA, local government area, is completely built out at this point. Throughout the 2010s and even up until 2020, there was additional stock occurring in that Brisbane LGA. Now we've got a lot more stock in the Logan cities and the Moreton Bays and the Ipswiches, which are that 35 to 40 kilometre ring outside of Brisbane. Now here in the buyers agency at Purpose Property, we focus on those established areas because we want the lack of supply. We want that underwhelming supply, again with strong or growing demand, and that's where you're going to get pressure on property prices and capital growth over a period of time. Another great indicator of what's going on in the property market can be rental vacancy rates. So as you can see here, there was quite high vacancy rates in terms of the number of properties vacant at any one time. And this graph shows both the volume and percentage vacancy rate here in Brisbane. Now, an equilibrium, most people would agree, is around that 3.5% mark in terms of properties vacant in an area versus rental demand. So when you've got, you see these statistics here between around 2015 to 2020, you would say that's fairly equal market in terms of the rental demand. But as you can see, 2023 and 2024, we're seeing 1% vacancy rates, which means rental listings or rental growth is occurring. And there's people fighting to get in the door to find the right rental property. You can also see, based on the Australian Bureau of Statistics data around arrivals, or another factor of demand, which is people moving between the states, you can see that interstate arrivals in Queensland topped New South Wales and Victoria with 107,935 people. There's also tracking interstate departures, so 75,000 in Queensland, leaving net interstate migration at 32,255 people. When you compare that to New South Wales and Victoria, New South Wales went backwards 34,000 people and Victoria went backwards 1,800 people. Now you would think most of the people would be fleeing Victoria, but it might be the investors fleeing Victoria from the taxes point of view and what's going on with their land tax policies and the other home ownership policies in Victoria. But people are moving with their feet in terms of homeowners and renters out of New South Wales and into Queensland, looking at the data coming out of the ABS. So we've summarized that we've got a lack of supply here in the Brisbane market. There's significant demand in terms of the vacancy rates, and people are moving interstate to move into this Brisbane market. Now, what's happening in terms of infrastructure and growth in Brisbane's economy and what is happening on the ground at the moment in terms of buying in 2024. Now, everyone knows about the Olympics, the cherry on the cake in 2032. But prior to the Olympics, Brisbane needs to prepare for the games. And what that means is significant infrastructure. I've made videos on this in the past talking about the transport and some of the venues, but to highlight some of these, we've got the Cross River Rail, which gives access to people across the city. We've got the Metro line, which runs along the current busway and allows a large number of people to move in towards the city from the outer suburbs in Brisbane City Council. We've also got potential upgrades to stadiums. Now, the Wollongabba upgrade has potentially been cancelled, but maybe they're going to be upgrading the stadium at Nathan, which will benefit suburbs like Tarragindi, Nathan, Salisbury, Sunnybank, Mount Gravatt and McGregor, which all these suburbs are located in the vicinity of this potential upgrade to the Nathan sporting facilities. Alongside Brisbane's booming infrastructure, we're also seeing growth in the jobs market. We're looking at mining and infrastructure, as well as civil and construction works. We're looking at retail growth. We're looking at growth in finances and tech startups. There's a lot happening on the ground in terms of Brisbane's job market. We've got the main city as a hub, but then we've got other hubs around Brisbane. I can talk about Chermside or 8 Mile Plains. These hubs are growing in terms of small and medium-sized businesses, and Brisbane's economy is growing as a result. Now, based on the lack of supply and growing demand, both from overseas, interstate, and locally here in the Brisbane market, the big four banks, ANZ, CBA, Westpac, and NAB, have all forecast growth in 2024 to be somewhere between 6 to 10%. Now, if we see this kind of growth lead into 2025 and 2026, by 2027, the average house here in the Brisbane market could retail for somewhere around $1.2 million. Now, to give you a guide, the median house or the current price for the average house here in Brisbane sits around that $910,000 mark, depending on which data house you look at. So that's a potential $100,000 jump each year if prices rise where the banks are expecting them to, based on their forecasts. Now, I don't want to make short-term investing decisions. I'm more worried about what Brisbane is going to do over the next 3, 5, 10, 15 years. I'm a long-term fundamental investor. But let me give you a recap of what's happening on the ground in 2024, and then we can talk about that long-term investing vision. So what we're seeing on the ground in my buyer's agency here at Purpose Property is interest and demand. We're seeing multiple offers currently. This is the middle of 2024. I'm currently recording this at the end of July in 2024, and we're about to go into our big spring season. Now, some of the talk from some of the selling agents is they're looking forward to this spring season because a lot of selling agents have struggled to get stock the last 3 to 4 months. A lot of agents have been sitting at their desks, twiddling their thumbs, trying to make phone calls and get access to listings and get sellers on the market. A lot of sellers have been hesitant because they can't get out of their own home and buy another property given the demand for other houses here in Southeast Queensland. And a lot of sellers are holding on. If we're seeing price growth, why would we sell if we're going to get another 5 to 10% each year on our property value? What this means is there's not a lot of supply. It goes back to the first graph that we looked at in terms of lack of supply of listings in the Brisbane market, and this is driving up property prices. There may be an ease in the next few months as more property comes onto the market, but generally, in my experience here in our buyer's agency at Purpose Property over the last 3 spring selling seasons, has been that there will be more property on the market and there'll just be more buyers to meet that increased supply that's entered into the market. There'll only be a decline in prices if more property comes onto the market, but the buyer demand falls away, stays the same, or doesn't keep up with the level of increase in supply. Now, funnily enough, Emily and I have made 2 recent purchases here in the Brisbane market. One on the north side of Brisbane and one on the south side. And we're going to be bringing to you a series later this year talking about those purchases, but I will reveal to you the addresses and some breakdowns of those properties here in the next few months. So make sure you subscribe to the channel for that. But what is going to happen in terms of the growth over the next 3, 5, 10, and 15 years? Like I said, I'm a fundamental investor at heart. I don't buy property for the growth of 5 to 10% over the next 12 months and speculate on this market growing quickly in the short term. Yes, short-term growth is great to enable you to access equity to keep building the property portfolio. And I think it's important for some investors to chase that short-term growth as they look to build out their portfolio. It might be the right decision for them. But on the flip side, you want to have that long-term fundamental growth there as well, and not just be making those short-term decisions. Otherwise, you could end up chasing mining towns and regional hotspots, which might grow over the next 2 to 3 years, but you might get stuck if you buy in multiple locations like that, and you don't have the long-term fundamental growth to back it up. So for Emily and I, we've invested heavily here in Southeast Queensland because I've got myself and 5 staff members on the ground, building relationships with agents, getting access to the data and stock available here in the Brisbane market. And we recently made those 2 purchases as long-term decisions for our portfolio. I found that when I've made short-term decisions like our flip project that we did in 2023, which was a 6 to 12 month, try and make a quick buck kind of job, those are high stress and not necessarily high reward if you don't get it right. Now, we still made a small profit on that project, but nowhere near as much money if we just held onto the property with a long-term perspective. You always need to balance the potential growth of the property and the cash flow, and that's what we're seeing in the property portfolio. It goes through the step-by-step process of building that multi-million-dollar portfolio and breaking down realistic examples of what you need to create a multi-million-dollar asset base and give yourself more choices in your financial future. So if you're interested in the course, also head over to purposeproperty.com.au and click on course to get access to it today. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Is the Brisbane market overhyped over the next 6 to 8 years? Or is Brisbane still set for some really strong growth over this next decade? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure you drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and if you want to see me break down some recent client purchases, including sharing those addresses of where those properties are exactly located, make sure you click this playlist over here. Thanks for sticking around. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.